speaking about building good money habits, and I think most of what I'll be speaking really is just to let you know the things that I've learned over the last few years. I'll start off by just even letting you know why I think this is necessary, why I consider it as something that is even worth discussing. So for me, like Digi said, I started my career like 20 years ago. I started in the bank. And for people that might be aware, like a few years ago, around that when I started my career, there was a mass retrenchment in the banking industry. There's so many people lost their jobs, especially the senior people. And what I realized was that within 3 to 4 months after many of these guys lost their jobs, they were back in the bank, asking for loans, looking, you could see the big reduction in the quality of their lives. And then the senior bankers were like the gods of everywhere, with their suits and everything. All of a sudden, you're seeing this, your bosses, 3, 4 months after they lost their jobs, and they are literally, you could see that reduction in their quality of life. And I just said, no, this will never be my portion. That I would not put myself in a situation in which I'm losing a job, I'm leaving a job, and I have nothing to fall back on. And I think that was a wake up call for me at that time that from day one, I'll start working towards my own future. And I started saving. So fast forward a few years, I noticed that many of my colleagues, my friends that were even earning more than me, and you probably know a few people like that, like by the end of the month, they're already broke, trying to ask for money, looking for money to buy this, trying to get a short loan. They get that one. Before the end of the next month, they are already broke again. And you know that it's not because of what they are earning. It's just because there's something wrong. At the same time, you see drivers or junior staff that are doing a job, putting money together every month, which, and they're able to save some level of to do whatever they want to do. And that it just tells me that it's irrespective of how much you earn. If you don't know what it takes to actually put something aside, you will not be able to, you know. And then looking at all these life experiences, I realized that there's about 99% of us, there's something we have not learned that perhaps 1% have learned, which I put together and I consider as what I'll call the good money habits, and I'll be taking them one by one. I just limited them to about 4 or 5 for the purpose of this, but I hope it will be helpful to everyone. Let's go to the next slide, Deji. So for this money habit, I think the first thing that will jump at you is that there are no quick fixes. So it's not something that you're going to do. You'll probably listen to this presentation by tomorrow. You guys, oh yes, so now I have all the habits and now a good money spender, so to speak. But it's one of those things that will require time. You have to learn every day, every week, make your mistakes. Continue to apply them, but what I can assure you is that with consistency on these habits, you would gain financial mastery. You'll be able to be, for the first time for many of us, you'll be able to be in the driver's seat of your finances, where you can actually look back and say that I plan to do this and I actually did it. You would also be able to track your spending. Many of us, no matter how much you earn, if you don't track it, you probably won't know how much you are saving, how much you're actually spending. You just realize that, okay, the month has ended. Now, I think the biggest thing that you learn with this consistency is discipline. Because what you realize, and as I'm going through this presentation, is that the bedrock of having good financial management, or having good money habits, is to be able to discern and decide that I'm going to say no to a particular expense rather than spend it. I'll actually keep some of that funds. And the beauty of this is that learning discipline in your finances will probably also extend to other areas of your life as well. So learning discipline in one area most times to actually apply to learning discipline generally. And as men, you realize that if you don't learn discipline, it's something that you probably struggle with for a lot of the other areas. Before I go into go to the next slide. Before I go into the habits per se, I would like to quote this person. That for people like that, like me, that likes to watch movies, you probably have heard of Shonda Rhimes, and she made this point that dreams don't come true just because you dream them, So you require it. Most dreams, but all dreams require hard work. You need to put work to it. So there's nothing I'm going to tell you today that would make a difference to you if you don't plan to put it to work. She says that dreams don't come true because you dream. There is hard work that makes things happen. It's hard work that creates change. So as we're going into this, I don't think it's going to be something that you've never heard before. But what I'm also going to do, apart from telling you, is also I'm also going to be encouraging you to take that step to put it to work. I think that is the biggest takeaway that you're going to get from this session. So the first one, which I think, did you go to the next slide? So I said that financial discipline is the bridge between your goals and your accomplishments. So I'll use my own example. So when I started working as a youth corper, I was probably earning 13,000 naira or so. And then I think I lost my dad around there. So I made up my mind that I would try my best to make that money work for me. So I'll bring my lunch from home. I would go with my colleague to the office in the morning. I'll come back with my colleague. I did everything possible to make sure that my 13,000 was good enough. In fact, from that 13,000, then I actually paid for my ICANN exams. I really just managed it. After NYSC, I got a good time job, a full-time job, probably earning like 30,000. Then I now realized that my colleague's car that was funny, his car smells funny. Rather than go with his car, I'll probably go by myself. That by the time I bring my food from home, it's not as fresh as I would like it during lunchtime. So I think what I'm trying to say is that many times people earn some amount, that without knowing it, as your income increases, you just generally see yourself adjusting your expenses as well. And not just on luxurious, even on necessities. You just see yourself adjusting your expenses to just cover that income. I'm probably earning a couple of multiples more than what I was earning as a youth corper, but which is fine, but at some point I have to realize that I cannot just, because I'm earning more money, I cannot just increase my expenses. So the next slide speaks a little bit about gratification, that you have to get to the point in which you have to decide that you're going to delay your gratification rather than spend that extra money that you earn, try to find a way to just delay that expense. And because you have to remember that anything that you don't spend, you probably can save. So it's every time you have a chance to increase your income, make a conscious effort to put that extra, so to speak, into something that is not an expense. So it's some form of saving, some form of investment. Break that cycle that you feel that, now that I have a bit more money, maybe it's time for me to buy that bangle that I've not bought. But of course, there'll be some things that you probably need to buy. So I'm not going to go holier than thou that that you shouldn't buy anything. Everything you have to save. But you have to create that mindset, that discipline, that whenever I earn money, it does not mean I have to spend it. Still try your best to maintain that as much as the previous cost structure that you have, so that you can actually save a bit more. Because the essence of financial management is really to be able to have something set aside when you need it. Many of us actually have do this in some specific areas, and for many of us, it might just be one or two areas that we have not learned to discipline ourselves. It might be recharge card, or watching the movies or something. So it's for you to look at your own expense lines, and that which of these expenses do you think is actually what might probably be draining your savings purse, so to speak. That if you're able to cut it a little bit, you might be able to save. And that is where you need to go. Now, the next one I would speak about is begin with the end in mind. And for many of us, we're at different stages of our lives. Looking trying to achieve different things. Some people are trying to get married. Some people want to get new cars. Some people want to build houses. So we have different things that we are aiming to achieve. So the question that you have to ask yourself is that what is that thing that you yourself you need for yourself? What that you're actually aiming for? What are those? Did you can go to the next slide? What are those long and short-term plans that you actually have? That you have for yourself. This is a personal thing. Now, if you know that thing, if you know that, how long do you have to actually achieve those things? Do you have 5 years? Do you have 10 years? Do you have 20 years? Then the biggest question is, what do you need to do to ready yourself for that particular thing that you want? So if you know that you want to get married in 5 years' time, what do you need to do today? To actually achieve it? Do you have to go to a counseling school? Do you have to go get some books? Do you want to start saving a particular amount? If you want to buy a car in 10 years' time, or you want to buy a house in 10 years' time, what do you need to do? And from today, what do you need to do from today to end up at that path? Now, this takes a lot of planning. And what the unfortunate thing about planning is that planning is never urgent. It's one of those things that is it called quadrant 2 now, that you don't really, it's very, very important, but it's never urgent. So you have to decide by yourself that you want to do it, before it's done, because nobody will come and wake up and come and plan, but you have to realize that if I don't plan, the impact is actually higher, So, and one thing that has helped me, and I think it helped quite a number of people, is what they call a dream statement. And a dream statement is that thing that you want to, and that you yourself want to achieve, So for me, if one of my own dream statements is I would like my daughter to go to Harvard, So it's something that I'm working towards, and maybe not Harvard, but just to make a point, that something I'm working on. And what I will do is that I'll write down that target. I want my child to go to Harvard, and I won't stop at that. I will make it very clear. So I would say I want Modesire to go to Harvard in the year 2027. So I will I will write it down, and then I'll write it down and put it in different places. So I'll put it in my wallet, I'll put it on the fridge in my house, I'll put it beside my bed. So I'm seeing it everywhere. So when I'm buying down my extra second or third or fourth car, as I'm about to remove my credit card and I see Modesire has to go to Harvard in 2027, I probably just put that card back in my pocket, But I'm saying this thing partly as a joke, but many times having that dream statement reminds you of what you want to achieve, and then helps you to focus on it. It has helped me a lot, actually. And for some people, just have one 20-year or 30-year dream statement. I work best with having a shorter term, 5 years, 1 year, 2 years. So I'm constantly working towards that thing, and that's my dream statement is very, very strong in my head. I see it, and every opportunity I have to tell my friends, I tell them that I'm aiming to do this. And many times, just to share since the men's group, for me, my own dream statement is not only financial. So sometimes I tell myself I want to do a half marathon, and everything I'm doing that until I achieve that is all focused on that. And I mentioned earlier about financial, about discipline. So for me, it's financial on one hand, but it's also self-discipline as well. Knowing that I can tell myself that I want to do something, and I am able to focus all my resources, financial or otherwise, towards achieving that thing. Even if it means depriving myself of the time I would have wanted to do something else I would have enjoyed more. So that helps me quite a lot. Now, the next one I'll talk about is budgeting. And here the slide says budgeting is telling your money where it's going instead of wondering where it went. And for this one, a few of us know people that budget. Then we have nicknames for them. You call them accountants, she raise costs. You get what you call the akagom. Because you feel that what's the point earning money and you're not able to spend it the way you like, But the issue is that many times, what the wise people do is that they budget rather than seeing the budget as a way to deprive themselves of what they've worked for. They actually see it as a tool to help them to actually plan for the kind of future that they want, So because I don't buy something, it doesn't mean that why can't I? Maybe I'm earning a lot of money. I can't I enjoy myself? But I'm actually not buying that thing today, so I can buy something I think I want more in that future. Again, just like I mentioned about planning, budgeting too is never urgent. Nobody will come and wake you up in the middle of the night that have you budgeted, But if you don't have that willpower that I'm earning this, of this money I'm earning, I plan to spend this amount on X, this amount on Y, pay for my tithe or whatever, and then I plan to save this. If you don't plan it at the beginning, probability that you'll be able to at the end of the month or at the end of the period is much harder. Because by then you have already spent all the money anyway. What budgeting does is that if, for instance, I had planned that I'm going to spend 5,000 on gifts, or giving and pardon this example, please. Because if you're in the community like Nigeria, like ours, where people will always come and meet you left, right, and center with different reasons why I need different reasons why they need money and asking, sometimes you need to just put your foot down and work within a budget. So if in a month I plan that this month I'm going to spend 10,000 on charitable giving, and then by 17th of the month, I'd already given out 10,000. By the 18th, if somebody comes to meet me that, hey, I need 1,000 or 5,000 for my child's school fees, I will feel bad. But because I had planned to spend 10,000, it's going to be easier for me to be able to say, sorry, I cannot afford it this month, probably have to be next month, than if I didn't have a budget at all. It won't be easier for me. I'll feel less guilty if I know that this is what I had planned for, than if I didn't. So many times working with a budget, I might even be something else. It might be like recharge card, for instance. I know that I plan I'm going to spend 6,000 on recharge card. By the time I finish spending that 6,000, it will be, even if I have to spend a bit more than that, I know that I'm going out of my budget. So I'll probably be a bit more conscious or cautious about the spending than if I didn't have any budget at all. So what helps me though is that at the beginning of the period, so I actually group my expenses into groups. So I have the basic ones, food and stuff on one hand. I have personal development ones. I have, family related ones. And then I apportion an amount to each of them. Then I try to ensure that at the end of the day, I'm still able to have a little bit to save. So some people have different rules, but I think that a good way to start is what they call the 80-10-10 rule, where 80 of your income, 80% you share among your expenses, your needs, so to speak, your general expenses. 10% will go into other things that are not necessities, maybe luxuries. You want to watch a movie and co. Then 10% will go into your own savings. Over time you can change it from 80-10-10 to 30-20, 30, sorry, 70-20 something. You just change it around until it's for whatever works with you. But it's always helpful that you actually budget, planning what you actually have and how best you want to spend it. Now, the next one is it says start thy purse to fattening and then control your expenses. And for some of you that have read the book The Richest Man in Babylon, so this is really just talking about saving and then also controlling your expenses. And the beauty, let me start with the first one. So I think I've already mentioned a little bit of it, that saving is just when you're saving, it's when you have money that you have put aside, so it moves you away from when you're just surviving. So you've seen that if I have, it's almost like what people call a war chest, So if you never have anything saved up, and then something comes up, there's somebody's like there's an investment opportunity or something like that, and you have nothing, you will just be there, But if you've been able to save something up, when opportunities come, you'll be able to take advantage of those opportunities when they come. It might be luxurious, something luxurious. It might even be a holiday. Imagine maybe someone said, Delta is doing 30%. You can pay 30% for it of the regular fare for a ticket to America, for your whole family or something like that. And then you realize that even that 30%, you don't even have it. Compare that to where all this while you have actually been saving and you actually have some money stashed aside to actually do something. So saving many times, putting saving and putting some money aside helps you when there are things that are coming up that are usually unusual. Either they are big things or little things. You can actually enjoy them, not having to run around for anything that comes. And looking at it from the negative side, God forbid, one needs some money for a health related thing, and then you don't have a penny saved up. Compare that to when all this while, when things are good, you actually put some money aside, So saving just helps you to move away from having to be running around when things come up. Now, did you mention about my money toolbox? So many times everybody likes the idea of saving, but of course, to be able to put it to start it or maintain is always difficult. So I think one thing that I try to do in my money toolbox is to try and look for things that have worked for me, have different templates, have different exercises, have different challenges in there that would probably help you to actually create that savings culture. And it also helps you when things happen that you've actually maybe falling off that track. It helps you to put you back onto the track. Now, the second part of that, which is controlling your expenses, so it's before we go into what is in your hands, so it was still on that slide, and I'll speak quickly because I'm conscious of time as well. Is that so? There are little things that I think we all understand that obviously for you to save, there are only two ways that you can actually save. It's either you reduce your expenses or you increase your income, really, or reduce your expenses or increase your savings. So there are I usually post if you follow me on Instagram, I usually post little things. Some of them are jokes. I think that's my own style of things that people can do to help them to improve. They are just the way they control their expenses. So one of it might be when you are going out, you don't always have to go out with your bank card. Leave your card at home. You get somebody. It might be that instead of going to go and see a movie, just stay at home and gist with your family. Or if you have some subscription, some of us have DSTV and GoTV, and that if you have a subscription that you are not using, just uninstall all those subscriptions. You take your time to go through that. So there are different tips here and there. There are many of them are just little things that people do here and there, but it's just to remind you. And I think the reason why people like it when I post it, I think things that they had forgotten, just like daily challenges that they can just do that might probably improve or increase their own, however they can save money. Now, the last one I will mention, which I think is my own favorite, is what is in your hand, Okay, so I've not been mentioning all the other quotable quotes, who has been quoting them, but this one is actually somebody that I cannot but mention, which is God to Moses, and really what this is saying really is you've done everything possible, you've done all the things I've said, and at the end of the day, you're still not able to save for your goal, So the only other thing that you can do is to find an opportunity to increase your income. If you from income from the money that you're earning, you've saved everything possible, you've put everything aside, but what is still not adding up. So what do you do? The last thing you can do, which is actually for me, this is the most creative of all the other habits, is to find an opportunity to increase your income. I truly believe that everybody has something deposited in them that can help them to make more money. You know, so it's left for you to find out what that thing is. And this here I'm not talking about PP or private businesses that would impact on your work. But this is more towards what you can do in your day to day, something that almost like what you ordinarily would have done as a hobby. But this time around you are enjoying it and you're actually still making money at the same time. First, before I even go into that, one thing that is important is for you to even assess your net worth, which is looking at all your income, looking at all your expenses on one hand. We've talked about that before. But then again, your assets. What do you have? Do you have a car? Do you have a house? Do you have a this? Do you have a that? List all those your assets. Now, your liabilities, do you have loans? Do you have obligations? Do you have unpaid school fees and things like that? List all those expenses as well. So what the net assets does helps you to do is to be able to know, one, whether you're even financially positive, or you're actually in deficit. At the same time, that list also helps you to know the kind of asset that you have that it may possibly help you to generate additional income in the future. So I'll give an example here, that I've seen that has been helpful during the COVID period. So there was a friend of mine, she loves to cook. Before the COVID, what she used to do was to spend time to make food for school children. So during the COVID period, she couldn't do that. She was home, So what she did was to create a what do you call it now? A kiddies club, cooking club for children. So she used what she enjoyed, which was cooking, and then created a cooking club. And before you know it, she had hundreds of kids, that were actually part of that club. Another friend of mine, he likes to gist a lot, talk what we call fabu. Just come up with short, interesting stories about his kids. His kids, half of what he says, we don't know whether the kids do them or not. But he's always posting on Facebook that my son said this, my son said that, and all that. So we had the conversation that why not just put all this together into a short storybook, just a short storybook. And initially he was reluctant, but eventually did, and people actually enjoyed it because they found it very, very funny and they enjoyed it. So it's just looking for those things that you think skills that you have that will help you. Some people might be photography, some people might be blogging, some people might be anything that you think that you can do, that you feel that is something that is unique to you, and then find a way to make money out of it. So in closing, so I think I've mentioned to go quickly through the key points that I'd raised. So the first one I mentioned was find the activities that hurts you financially. So what do you do to actually discipline yourself to reduce those activities? The second one I mentioned was about the dream statement. And this is a very practical one that I have used several times. Make that dream statement, write it down in several places. We constantly remind yourself, constantly tell people too. So even if you forget, people will remind you, I thought you said you were going to, so out of that shame, they even force you to do it. Then I talked about budgeting, so when you budget, don't worry, people might call you names, but you know what you're aiming for. And I talked about saving and controlling that expenses. And of course, finally, I talked about turning your passion to profit. So if you ask me, what is the secret to building good money habits? I would say that the first and by far the most important one is that you need to have that willpower, that discipline to push through knowing what you want to achieve. The second one, please, you can go to the next slide. The second one is you need a plan. You need to have a game plan, which is I think that's the best where your dream statement will work for you. Know where you are going and know how you plan to get there. And of course, the third one is you need the right tools. So because many times it's not just enough to just think about it. You have to do something about it. So the right tools will obviously be helpful to you. The last slide is a slide. It's almost like a call to action. We sometimes I joke that I think we've overused this particular quote in Sahel. But it's so true, particularly for the current we the young generation, so to speak. And this quote says that this generation is no longer asking God to grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change. We're also asking the Almighty to grant us the courage and wisdom to change the things that we cannot accept. And I think I brought this to just to remind us that for us, if the plan, the expectation for this conversation we're having today is for you to improve yourself, improve your finances, improve your person, there's work required of you. It will never be like my dear friend Shonda Rhimes said, it will never be because you dream it. You have to be ready to do that work, and you have to have that boldness. Sorry, pardon me, please. Have that boldness um, to to make it happen. Thank you very much. I know that Deji probably has some questions in the queue, and I'll be happy to take a few questions.
Thank you very much, Olumide. That was really, really very, very insightful and very impactful. This is probably the first time I've listened through your, this presentation as well. So it's really quite impactful. I'm going to stop sharing now, and then we will just go straight into the Q&A session. So the way we are going to do this is, instead of us just me just asking the questions, we're going to do it together, myself and everyone here. If you have questions, let's do this together. So if you have a question, just because of time, if you have a question, either type it in the chat box or raise your hand. So I will either call you at some point to ask the question, or I will read out your question from the chat box. And as much as possible, if you're going to be raising a question, so for the sake of time, try and keep the question, to 10, 15 seconds, quick, sharp, so that we can get through all the questions that we might have today. So I will get the ball rolling. Olumide, once again, thank you very much for the thoughts that you have shared with us today. Now, here goes my first question. What I believe is going to be on the mind of a lot of people that are sitting here today will be the question of how much I earn versus my ability to really save. So the reality is, if I'm earning, like you mentioned earlier, if I'm earning 30,000 and I'm earning 50,000, I probably live on the island, on the mainland. I work on the island, so transportation alone has taken a lot of my funds. I have to eat. I have to, wear some good clothes. I probably even work in a bank, and they expect me to wear suit and tie, which means I have to look the part. So the question from me is, what do you do in that kind of situation? How do you still get to be able to save, when you're in such a situation?
Thank you much, Deji. Thank you very much, Deji. That very good question, and funny enough, I think I almost always get that question, and that question was one of the reasons why I gave the first example, like when I was sharing my own experience, what I've said. You've seen people that while you're earning 30,000, and like you said, you're struggling to save. You're actually people that are earning less than that. That's why I mentioned that people that are earning much less and actually still saving as well. They're fine. They're doing their 1,000 a susu and things like that. So what I would say is that obviously it has to start from somewhere. So we have the first is to put it in your mind that no matter how much I'm earning, I should be able to save something, that everybody can save. So it might just be that what I'm on day one, you're starting with 1,000 naira a month, save as a saving, or then later on you think, let me see how I can shave off something and I'll make it 5,000, But many times what I've seen is that if you look back, even if you look back at how much you're actually earning and how much you spend in a month, taking that time up to look at your expenses closely, you might be able to, most times you'll be able to see areas of those expenses that you may be able to shave off. It will like probably be doing something creative. It might just be okay, rather than buy, I'm in the bank, rather than buy a new shirt, maybe I should buy some Robin Blue and then make sure I start the shirt a bit better, you know. Or it might be I'll be buying a shoe every other month. I'll just, or instead of spending so much on transportation. Perhaps this is not probably not true. Maybe if I should leave home earlier, I might be able to get the cheaper transportation or find somebody that actually lives closer. That rather than transfer myself from the office to the house, might be transfer myself from my house to somebody's house that might be cheaper for me. And so it's at the end of the day, it's still a personal thing. But with that mindset, it comes with that mindset that everybody can save. You get everybody can should be able can save. It will be difficult at first, So that's the first work is really to find out what are those expenses that you may be able to shave off, and then over time, of course, as your expenses are increasing. Bearing this and coupling this with what I said earlier about consciously looking for what you have in your hands, where you think that while you are doing your regular job, either your 50,000, 30,000, what can you possibly be doing to increase that income gradually? Because that any increase from that will easily just go to your savings. It might just be that by the time you are finishing, you're closing from work, you can actually just speak to one or two people to teach them how to do algebra, or your way home, and then you're making 3,000 naira extra, So it's really, so on one hand, that definitely thinking through which of the expenses you can shave rather, and then what can you possibly do, that will just that may possibly increase your income without impacting on your job.
Thank you very much, Olumide. By the way, your video is off in case you're not aware of it. Yeah. Okay. Something that struck me from what you said is keeping track of your expenses. There's a popular saying that whatever you don't track, you cannot change. And if there's one habit that I think for me personally and my wife that we've been able to latch on over the last couple of months that has been extremely helpful is that on a monthly basis, at the end of the month, we always keep track of everything we've spent and what area we spent it on. So I think one other thought is before you even know where to reduce your costs, you need to track where you spend your money and where it goes. Once you've done it for a couple of months, you begin to see patterns, and that helps you to know where you want to shave off here or there.
Yeah. Absolutely correct, and I'm happy you mentioned that, and I'm actually aware that you do that as well. You'll be shocked that you are probably among the 1% that does that, because a lot of even financial accountants know they have to, but it takes a lot of discipline for you to sit down to track. But so there are two aspects to it. One is tracking how much you actually spend. The other is the budgeting for how much you plan to spend. Both of them are very, very difficult, But to your point, being able to do both, either but preferably both, will go a long way for you to be able to. In fact, many times what you realize is that you won't know how much you actually spend on a certain until you realize it. Then looking at those numbers, then you are shocked, and it helps to be able to plan towards them.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Alo Okoli, you have your hand raised up, so you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Deji. Thank you, Mr. Olamide, for the insightful section. So my question is around savings. So I noticed that savings could actually, if you get into it, it could become a bit addictive, that you are just hooked on just saving. So my question is, how do you actually transition from savings to investments? And like, what becomes the focus of how to properly invest? Because I'm saying this maybe for some of us who have gotten used to savings, and you just like to see your cash stacked up in a sense. But then how do you actually transition to a proper investment? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Alo. In fact, I'm happy you raised that question because that was a particular part of my presentation that I did not get to. So in the context of this presentation, so when we're saying savings, I'm using the word savings a little bit loosely, in the sense that in this context, it's really aiming more towards a discipline for you to keep money aside. So in this context, it's a little bit loose. So it's, when we say savings, it doesn't necessarily just having the cash stacked somewhere. So in this context, more between savings and investment. You're right. A lot of people say, just have to have their money in cash, but many times it's really because one, they don't know where to invest the money, or they've invested it in the past and they got their fingers burnt. So well, this time around, it's better for me to keep my money. Let me see the cash. Unfortunately, with the FX devaluation, so while you're seeing your money as cash, it's actually not the same value. Because you're probably losing value even having it as cash. So on one hand, please, when I'm saying savings, it's more of just in this context, it's more of just putting money aside. But so to your question as to so what I guess your question is, so where do you save your money? Where do you invest your money? Where do you move your money from cash to other investments? There are a few things to consider, and fortunately and unfortunately, savings investments also very personal, in the sense that there are various factors that differentiate a person from another, and which will impact on their investment decision. So it's either your horizon. Some people have a long time, like how a 25-year-old person would invest their money, person would invest. The kind of risk that they are willing to take, will be different. If we're talking about risk, some people are generally risk averse. Some people are more risk and can take more risks. So even that would determine the kind of investments that they can do. Some people have liquidity needs. That they want investment that will be giving them steady income, or liquid income every now and then. Others don't need it, so they can afford to just put their money into long-term plans. Other people have special constraints. Maybe they want to manage taxes, and things like that, and other government regulations. So that would also affect the kind of investments that they do. So at the end of the day, when it comes to investment, it comes to the kind of how you have profiled yourself, or how an investment advisor has profiled you, and the kind of investment that fall into your bucket. Obviously, speaking very generally, it can be equity, debt, or other sorts of quasi-equity, quasi-debt type bucket. But at the end of the day, it's hard to be able to have this kind of platform advice on what particular type of investment one could do. One thing that I would mention though is that a lot of people I know have been in the because of again, it's also a risky one, because of all the FX challenges, have thought to put their money in other foreign currencies just to find a way to preserve the capital, which sounds like a good idea, but it's also making a bet on the Nigerian currency or the foreign currency, which to some level requires some level of, speculation on one hand and expertise. So it's hard for me to tell you that tell anyone that put your money in dollars. It sounds intuitive because we all believe that the naira will continue to value, but it's not. It's a difficult decision to take or to advise without knowing the specifics. Many times you need some level of expertise to be able to take some of those decisions. I hope that's clear.
Yes. To a good extent it is. Thank you.
Thanks, Olumide. Larry is asking, he says, I'm not sure of how to budget. I don't know how much I need to set aside for feeding and other things that are actually necessary. So Olumide, maybe you can just touch on the practical aspects of budgeting a bit more.
Okay, of course, the first thing I would just say is like maybe you should just get my money toolbox. No, but it's a very good question. And thanks for that question. So I think for budgeting again, it's something that you have to at the end of the day. The first thing you need to do, I think you mentioned it, is before you budget is looking forward. The easiest way to start your budget is actually to take one step back. To look at, okay, even last month, how did I spend my money? You know, so looking, taking that step back to look at how you how you spend the money, where the excesses were, would help, most times help you to see where you may be able to shave. So it's the first thing I would suggest. So there are two. In fact, it's a two-pronged approach that I would suggest. And again, I know I said it's in jest, but I think actually believe that my money toolbox will help. So the first thing you do is, one, plan where you want, what you want. And I think I've spoken about it a little bit, that what do you really taking that thing, it's almost like a personal retreat for yourself. If you truly want to do this thing, take that step back. That what do you want to do? That so don't just budget for budgeting's sake, that because I want to budget. Give yourself a plan that of what you want to achieve. That so if your budget, in your back of your mind, what do you want to achieve? I want to be able to have 10 million naira saved up by in the next 5 years. So with that in mind, or I want to be able to afford to buy a house, in 20 years. And then, so with that in mind, it just gives you a rough calculation of what I should be looking at. So it might come down to, for me to achieve that, to even think about that possibility, I might need to probably save 40,000 naira a month, So now it's not to think through, how can I save 40,000 based on what I'm earning now? So the next step is to actually look at how you spent it last month or the month before, or even the last 3 months. What are those consistent things that is actually taking the biggest part of your expenses? And then what do you need to do to actually, what can you possibly do to reduce it? I know that there was a time that a study that we did once sometimes said that in most developing countries like ours, food probably takes like 70% of your how much that you spend. So his question is, how can you save on that? Does it mean cooking at home, or just consciously don't eat junk? What do you think you can possibly do that may help to reduce some of that expense? And then constantly looking at how you can do it, and then anything that you're able to save, treat as your own victory by putting it in your own savings. And of course, again, Allah, when I say savings, it's really savings or investment. I mean, just take it away from what you would have ordinarily spent as an expense. It's something that you actually put aside towards that goal that you're looking at.
Thank you very much, Olumide. Time is almost up, but there are one or two things I still want to touch on. One of them is extremely important, and that is really around the cycle of debt. I know there are a lot of people that are already in that cycle, and they are trying to get themselves out of debt. So before they can even start saving, they're not even thinking about savings now. The question they're asking themselves is, how do I get out of this place that I'm in? I know somebody recently reached out to me, on this subject, and he has found himself in that cycle. And what he has done is he has gone ahead to use, some of these money apps that you can use quickly borrow loans, to pay off your debt. Then took another one to pay that one of them too. So he has about 6 or 7 of those things running, and the interest rate that comes on those kind of things. Can you talk us through how can one even get out of that cycle of debt before one can even start investing?
Well, thank you very much, DJ. And it's a vicious cycle, because what usually happens that once you get it, like you see your point, you probably borrow from A to pay B. In fact, there was a joke someone said that once you start, it's hard to live, but it's actually possible. What I would suggest, and of course, I know people on this platform, they also have practical examples. So so in case anybody has been, because I've actually been through that cycle before, and I'll tell you what helps me. And if people have other experience, I do is actually very, now that it's so easy to get those monies, people have to work on it. So what I think is actually see it as it's a plague, you know, see it as something that until one is not able to, and I say things like it because many times I speak a lot to myself, So if you know that this thing that you're having is almost like it's until you're able to quench it, you can't really even start saving or even start living. Even you're not even surviving, you're practically living a difficult one. So it's again, it still comes. It's almost the way I see it is those monies are almost like a negative. It's like you are starting your savings from a negative, you know. So it's to now consciously look at obviously. Let me start by saying um, there's good debt and there's bad debt in the sense that, and I say good debt and bad debt from the perspective of what the money is used for. Many times, many of these loans, I know that they are mostly payday loans that people just take with the plans of paying it from their salary without any particular need. As an investment person myself, I would not say that loans are generally bad. You know, is the hope is that when you are taking a loan, you are taking with the plan of using it for something that will probably generate more returns or more income than what that loan is. And I'm saying this because I don't want to people to live here with the fear that I would never touch a loan. Loans are in certain circumstances, loans may be necessary. It's just that in the circumstance that we're speaking about now, most people take it just to be able to settle quick payday loans, or when you think things are difficult and then they realize that they take that loan and it's hard for them to pay back. So I just wanted to mention that, you know. So what I would suggest is that treat this as almost like it's still like saving, but from a negative perspective. So that which means that anything that you are able to, because the only way that you can actually cover them is to find a way to repay them. That's just it. You cannot run. Okay. So what you need to do is so it still comes down, Deji. I think it still comes down to thinking through where you want can actually shave off expenses, where can actually bring some money in, with the plan that gradually one can actually find a way to pay some of these loans. What may help in some circumstances is because these loans most of them are actually at shark rates, so you're actually paying 30%, 40%. What may be able to be helpful is almost like a restructuring. If you're able to get a cheaper loan, whether a cheaper, better structured loan, that can actually use to offset all these, particularly if you are one of those people that have like 4, 5, 6 different loan sharks calling you, it might be helpful if there's a way you can actually restructure it such that you have one person that is coming after you, and the rates and the terms are things within what is within your own, what you can do. So if it's I know it's difficult, but if it's possible to restructure it so that you have a more manageable loan repayment, on to one source rather than have 5, 6, 7 different people hounding you, that would be helpful. The next is based on that is to now see how you can walk through your finances, walk through your expenses, walk through ways that you can actually gradually pay down this loan, knowing that it's almost like, I don't want to use the word cancer, but it's something that you need to very consciously, and then of course during that period, don't go and borrow more money from a loan shark because you want to pay another one, because it's just kicking the can down the road. So it's really how can you actually you can shave some of these expenses, you get as almost as drastically as you can, almost to bare bones, so that you can actually settle this loan, so you can actually now begin your financial planning.
Thank you very much, Olumide. I really want us to round up at this point because I always like sticking to time. I've already shot above the time by 2 minutes. Thank you so much, Olumide. There are a lot of lessons, a lot of valuable lessons that you have pointed out. I think the biggest for me, which I think I want everyone here to take away, is one, you have to be disciplined financially. Your ability to say no and know what to say no, and say the no with your chest is extremely important. In fact, I think it's one of the biggest secrets to, like you said, to being able to manage your finances very well. Control your expenses, which means you have to keep track of those expenses, as much as possible, And of course, if there are ways in which you can improve your top line, in which you can improve your income, whether it's through some side hustle or improving yourself so that you can deliver more value at your work and you're able to get a raise or promotion, anything you can do to increase your income is also very important. There's a story that I want to end with. I heard of a lady, and some of us might have heard this story before, an American lady. She was a secretary, all her life, and she was earning very meager income. But when she died, in her will, she had about, I think, $4 million in her will, and people were wondering what actually happened. Now, on a very exceptional situation, the woman never got married. She didn't have any child, but still, she was earning a very meager income as a secretary, and that's what she did all her life till she died. However, what she had been doing is that every single month since she's been working, she's been saving almost 40 to 50% of her salary, and she just put it in a fund that just kept putting little interest on it. And if we understand the power of compound interest, over time, that just expands the value of the money that you have. And that's how, at the end of her life, she had put aside about $4 million, something that most people that were earning multiples of what she was earning were never able to do. Till they died. So, Olumide, thank you very much. I really appreciate, the time you've spent with us. And while I'm not actively selling a book, I think it's important that if you can lay your hand on the book, my Money Toolbox, I'll probably give one or two people. I will try and figure out who the people I should give are. But I'll probably find one or two people to give to the book as well. But if you can also get your hand on the book, I think it's a very practical guide to being able to manage your finances better. So thank you very much once again, everyone. And Olumide, it was a pleasure having you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, bye.
Yes.